Alright, I won't keep you in suspense. I'll show you right at the beginning. This is the project I was working on. So, as a couple of my hunting buddies can attest to, this is a project I've been talking about doing for a few years. So, kind of had the time and the tools available to get this project done, so I took advantage of it. Well, I'll leave a description of the parts list and everything that I used below to kind of give you an idea, but I would suggest looking at YouTube videos, other ones out there. And that's what I did. I just pulled different pieces from different videos of things I liked and went from there and kind of made my own plan. But get it all laid out. I can't really give you dimensions because every truck is different. So you just kind of got to lay it out, but just make sure you have clearance at your tailgate and everything when you're pulling your drawers out. So without dragging this out any further, let's get into this. And if you like this video, don't forget, subscribe. It definitely helps. Hit that thumbs up, hit that bell notification. And as I mentioned later on in the video a little bit too, same thing. Just leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think of this project. Maybe we can find a way to do some other projects down the road. So in this first picture, I'm just showing the base. It's got the three boards on the bottom with one on the back, and then it's the same thing with the three boards standing upright with the back plate. That's just kind of the base of the project, and then there will be drawers that go on each side of this, as you'll see. Now at the very front of this, there will be a plate that ties it all together at the front of this picture, and I'll show you that later on. But I just used a Kreg jig for this project, and it worked out great, so I would highly suggest that. So in this picture, I'm just showing you the three sides, the upright sides, and then the back piece. Now everything, even the base on the bottom, I ripped in 6-inch strips out of that 3/4. And in hindsight, for the bottom base, the 6 inches is fine, but on your upright pieces, in the center and in the back and on the two sides, I would have went maybe 6.5, maybe 7 inches, just to give myself some more clearance. I made what I did work, but I had to work around it just a little bit. This is just showing the Kreg jig holes. I did it for the base, like I'd mentioned earlier, and then the boards going upright that you see in the picture. On the back side of that, I did the Kreg jig holes down into it, and you'll see a picture of that a little bit later. So here's that Kreg jig on the sides, just to lock that in. And remember, you're gluing all of your seams too. Get some type of, wood glue, whatever product you prefer, but it definitely helps. So in this picture, I'm just showing you that I have the bearings on the bolts on the sides. Now I used carriage bolts on the side that were 1.5 inches, I believe, and then that way they get sunk into the board, because I had issues if I left the bolt hang out the back side, it was going to hit my wheel wells. So I just decided to use carriage bolts. Then on this one, I'm just showing you where the drawer slide kind of goes into those rollers, those bearings, and how that will kind of lay out. But that drawer slide is obviously going to mount on the drawer itself. I just kind of laid it in there to see what it, give you an idea what it looked like. So on the center, you're going to have a bearing on both sides of this. So I used a 2-inch bolt. I would even suggest a 2.5-inch bolt. And the reason is you kind of want to separate those bearings out a little bit further to hit those 1-inch rails that you're using. So here on the middle board with the two bearings, I just used 5 washers on each side of that board to push that bearing out so it lines up with that rail a little bit better. This is where I was saying a 2.5-inch bolt, you could just use more washers or even put a nut in there to give you that space. And you can kind of see it when it all gets laid out, what I was talking about. But this seemed to work anyways. There was enough there once you get it all locked in with your top and everything. And don't forget to use some thread lock on all of these bolts and nuts. This is just the layout of the bearings, the height and how far apart they are, so you can drill your holes. I just made a jig with my dimensions and just ran up and down the board and drilled my holes. Now obviously, like the diagram says, you want top and bottom bearings to hold that weight once that drawer is open at the front. And then my next one, I went single, and then I did a double, and then I went a single. And I may even just add more bearings to it later on. So this is showing you on the bottom side in the center there, that front board that I was saying that tied this all together. Now you need to make sure you put this in and tie this all together before you put your top on. So right where I Kreg jigged this bottom frame together, obviously I was in a hurry on this, wasn't thinking, but this piece to tie that front board in, I'd have Kreg jigged from the tailgate inward rather than vice versa like I did. The reason you want to Kreg jig it that way is because if you ever have to take this out for any reason, you have a way to just pull the drawer out, access those screws, lift that up and pop that board out rather than popping the top off. And then on the far left, I just tied it in with a turn bolt using an eye hook that I put in, making sure that is put in under the railing that slides in, and then it just hooks to your tie down in the back end of the truck. So here I'm showing you one of the drawers, how I Kreg jigged the frame of the drawer, and I didn't on the front where the handle is, because I kind of had a different idea and then changed my mind later on, so I ended up putting a board across the front and then just putting a faceplate on it. But then you also have the rail, so you have to drill some holes through your rail and get some screws to fasten it to the side, and I just lined it up by putting it in the rollers, drawing a line and getting as close as I could. So those outside holes on that rail are bigger just so you can fit something in there to reach the screw that you're putting in. The holes on the other side of that rail close to the board are just pilot holes. So this is where I was talking about earlier with the upright pieces of your frame, making them taller, 6.5, 7 inches, to give you that play space that you may need when you're putting your drawers in. And then I used 11/32 plywood for the floor of the drawers, and then just tack that in all the way around. And while we can see it, the top of this, I just laid carpet on that and then used a couple strips that I had and tacked that down, and that's all that's really holding it. I went around with a staple gun and just put some staples in periodically, especially across the front lip. I only did it by tacking it because I have plans for possibly doing something with the top of that later on. So here I just fastened a decent sized handle on there that was sturdy enough to pull that drawer out with some decent sized screws without punching it all the way through, though. I may add a couple of fasteners later on depending on how this faceplate handles. And then I just glued and put my carpet pieces in, and then later went back with a staple gun and just tacked it periodically to help hold it. But the faceplate on the front I just glued and tacked on the back side because I knew once I put those screws in it was going to hold it pretty good. Well, there it is, the finished product. I carpeted this drawer just because this is the one I'm putting my guns and accessories in. Just wanted a little extra padding if I lay them in there by themselves. This drawer is just for tools and any other accessories, dog decoys, extension cords, whatever you have. I wanted two separate drawers, but that definitely gives me the space I needed to store things. It's a great little project, not very expensive. If you were to buy one of these, they run anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000 depending on which one you get. The whole price of this was $300. You have your time invested into it, but definitely a cost saver. So if you have the tools to do it, a little bit of time, doesn't take that long, a couple days, throw everything together and tack everything up. Other than that, a nice little project. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, leave a thumbs up, hit that bell notification, and leave some comments down below what you thought.